I am actually the dog whisperer. My friends always say that because for some strange reason, maybe whatever I have, they want, or I have. I always believe that my dog died and landed back up in me. But no matter what, I believe that those four-legged little creatures are given to us from heaven. They are meant to love us, to guide us, and most importantly, to show us love and understanding, which I think we all could use a little of. So today, welcome to Let's Get Real. My name is Glenda Kroll, for those who don't know me. And if you don't know me, then you got to get to know me, because I'm here to transpire you to a better and greater person that you can be and are. Today, we're going to be talking to a very special woman, and her and I just hit it off right from the beginning. Why? Because she's just like me. She's a little dog whisperer too. And today's episode, we're going to feature Arianne de Rond, a transformational coach and expert in personal growth and spiritual awakening, and especially a dog training. With over 30 years of experience with intuitive coach and an animal communicator, Arianne introduces us to her groundbreaking dog mastery approach, empowering individuals to cultivate self-mastery through their canine companions. So most importantly, let's come along and join us on Let's Get Real, and make sure, don't forget, give us a little bit of love, ask us some questions. We're here to inspire you. Welcome, Adriana. Pleasure to you to come on. I'm so excited today.
Oh, what an announcement. Thank you. I love your announcement and I'm so glad to be here. Thank you, Glenda, for inviting me. And yes, it was a pleasure to meet with you for the first time. So today we have a full hour.
We have a full hour to talk and inspire people because, you know, I've, even as a little girl, I used to run away from home. And where did I go? I went to neighbors' houses who had dogs.
Yes.
So, when my parents couldn't find me, I was at somebody's house who had a dog, because from a little girl, I just always were in love with them. And especially till today. I don't have one now, but I just, because I was living in a place that didn't allow animals, but it doesn't matter. All my friends and family have dogs. So when they need the help, who comes running, but yours truly. So, but here's what I do know, and I've seen it, that they have such mastery within themselves and what they can do. So how did you get started in dogs? Tell me about it.
All right. Okay. I love that you said I run away from home because that's what I did. But I run away, not just to dogs, but to like farm animals. I love to go on the farms and cuddle with the cows or the pigs or whatever. And it is magic with animals. And I always had dogs, and like I always did silly things with lots of dogs together because they made me feel so much better in life than people around me, right? I always thought like they don't understand me, and I often felt weird, but the dogs, they love me anyway.
So let's begin. First of all, I hear there's an accent in yeah, you sound like all of us too, but there's some of a little accent. And so how did you're talking about farms and you're talking about animals. Tell us, where did you start from?
Okay, so now we get a little bit. Okay, we made a big jump over the ocean about 12 years ago. So I lived in the Netherlands first.
Mhm.
That's where I was born, where I grew up, where I went to the farms. And we didn't have a farm. And I always told my dad, why don't you have a farm? So that's why I tried to escape on my bike, because that's what everybody does in Holland. They bike. So I biked to the nearest farm and I spent most of my days on the farms. However, my parents had dogs my whole life. I was born beside a dog. I have always had dogs. And when I left home, I went to the south of the Netherlands. I became together with my husband. We got four kids in the south of Holland, and he had a farm. So we had dogs and we had pigs at that time. And that was lovely to raise your kids around that area, because that's what I always missed and I could give them. However, in the Netherlands, it's not as easy in farming and everything anymore. So we decided 12 years ago to make that big jump over the ocean and land in Canada.
Yay!
So we're now in southwestern Ontario, and we love it here. There is lots of opportunities, even agriculture. Right now, we don't have a farm anymore, but I can tell you one thing, that the farming in you never goes out. And our whole family, including every kid, works on different farms. So we all have that special with animals. And some work with cows, some work with pigs. My son, who is the youngest, he's 15 right now. His most loving thing that he has on a day working on the farm is when he gives birth to that little piglets that coming out of the sow. He's so happy if he can kind of catch them, dry them, and save them. And yeah, that is one of the biggest things that I always loved to do. And now he does that too. So yeah.
So it's such a grounding experience, to be around animals. There's something that they do to you that
Yes.
that grounds you. It makes you feel alive and just
Yes.
being present in the moment. And that's what I
Yes.
always tell people. If you watch a dog get up in the morning, what does the dog do? First thing he does is he stretches, and he makes usually a few noises, their grunts and groans, but they do, downward dog right away. So, the best things we can do for our own body first thing in the morning
Yes.
is to stretch.
Definitely. Yeah. And I have 3 dogs right now, and they some do it on the stairs and do a downward dog. And but it's perfect. It's the way, if you wake up, the first thing you need to do is stretching. Even if you had a long nap, you need to stretch, right? We can learn so much from dogs, and dogs are living in that presence, and that's why you say it's so grounding, right? So every animal has that, and all nature does that as well. But if we go back to dogs, dogs really kind of bring us back in, how do you feel right now? They love you right now. They are not thinking about the future or what it was yesterday. They don't know.
Even if you go out for 5 minutes, you come back, it's like they haven't seen you for 20.
They are celebrating that you're back.
It's the lessons of life that we need to really follow.
Yes, oh, definitely. We can learn so much from dogs. And that is what I try over 30 years of experience, where I did dog training and I did coaching from people. I did the animal communication. And if you all bring that together, I thought, like, you know what? We're trying to train our dogs, and we want them to do better, but maybe we should do better too.
So yeah, it's so important. And if we can sit back and look at the lessons that we can look at, and never mind just looking at those lessons, but taking them and bringing them and putting them into your own life, putting them into practice,
Yes.
it can change things. It can teach you to be, first of all, like we just said, more in the present, because
Yeah.
that's where we need to live, and be a little bit more, because that's where we need to change, become more grounded. But it's the thing of, dogs have that feeling. They can sense if you're angry, they can sense if you're happy, they can sense if something's wrong with you. I was reading something of, dogs can smell you, and even they're detecting cancers in nowadays in people.
Oh, yeah, yeah, they can do so many things. And it's important that we start to acknowledge that we might can learn a lot more from dogs than until now we kind of saw in them. So besides just having a pet that loves us and is happy when we're home, what if we turn it and think like, okay, we're starting to have people who see their dogs as therapy dogs, right? Or mental health dogs. So we start to see already there is a lot more that dogs can do for us. But a big thing is that we need to open ourselves up and start to see it.
So let's talk about that because you know what? There's a lot of people that maybe think are on the fence of having a dog or not. But what I want to do is let's talk about if you've got a dog, let's start being able to train. Never mind training the dog, let's start training you because I believe the dogs train us. You know, they're much smarter
Yes.
than we are,
Yeah,
right?
I bet. I'm totally with you.
Okay,
Yes.
so let's start training people now of how can we start living a better life? And on the side of, especially if you've got a dog, how can we bring that into ourselves? Because we got to start smartening up and start living a healthier, better life. But, you know,
So I love that question, and I would jump right on you because you started to tell me that you don't have a dog right now because you're not able in the circumstance that you have. But you're still going to see dogs. So if you are not able to have a dog, you can still borrow dogs around you, right?
oh yeah, my friends will be more than happy to give me their dogs, and
Yeah.
they have sleepovers, and we go for walks and all the rest of it. So yeah, no problem
So
about that one.
let's start with that and acknowledge if you don't have the time and the attention to be with the dog, then you shouldn't have a dog. That's a big one, right? Then find other ways that you can still enjoy that love from dogs, but maybe not right in your home. So that is a big one. And then on the next part, if you have a dog in your house, it is very often that we have huge expectations that they will know what we want or what they need to do, but we forget that we need to put some education in it first. We forget the whole education part.
So, you know, from the one thing that you know that I learned at a very early time is when I've always had dogs, they always turn into being really loving dogs because you know love creates love, right?
Yes.
And people would always say, especially my last dog, he was just, everybody used to call him Mr. Yevers because he was just a big love pot. And he was so good. And people would say, how did you get him so incredible? Well, here's the big secret. He would go for a lot of walks. When
Yes.
you walk your animal, you're walking yourself, and you know, we don't do enough for ourselves. And sometimes I'm guilty of that. If I had a dog, I'd be out every single 3 4 times a day. But
Yes.
you know, sometimes with life I don't get as much. But when we walk our dogs, we have a happier dog, but we also become healthier ourselves.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it's about that moving part that is really the reminder that the dog gives us that we need to move through life, that we need to go off screen and do something else. And my dogs are really good in that. They are like, I think it's time. Don't you think, right?
Yeah,
But
they know
it's
all the time.
yeah. So it's important that as soon as we go outside, we get that grounding part from nature again, but also we're moving our energy and emotions, they can feel them and we cannot fake our emotions to the dog. Like the dog knows even if you try to hide your emotions. Yeah. It's for your dog, they're there. They know. So
Okay,
but as
go
sorry.
ahead. I'm
But
sorry.
as soon as you start moving, you're moving your emotions through your body, so you're kind of getting rid of that emotion and you become happier just by the moving part.
So what I was jumping in on, because I want to bring out what you said, something very important and people don't realize. Let's talk now a little bit about energies, because energy is everything in life. You
Yes,
know, if I'm having a down day and I'm feeling low and I start talking negative, what am I doing? I'm
you're
creating.
attracting more.
Right. Hello. Thank you. Okay, people don't realize this. And you know, if you did, maybe this is time that you needed a little bit of a reminder, a little shake up,
Yes.
right? Go out for a walk. What happens?
Is that a question for me?
Well,
You feel better right away.
well, because we're moving and we're getting air into our lungs, into our brains, into our bodies. So what we need to do is, it creates, it changes the energies that we have in ourselves.
Yeah, and I don't know about you, but I have been taught that if we have an emotion and we feel it, it never takes more than 15 minutes before it disappears again. That's just a natural way. So if we, but what we do as human is we start to create that emotions, and we make it more. We start to tell everyone about what we feel, and now it's not 50 minutes, it's 15 days. Because we make it so much more. But if we don't do anything with it and we just feel it and move, then within 15 minutes, it naturally dissipates.
So, all right, this is always the important things. When you're not feeling it and you're feeling that stress that's in our bodies, and we all have, really crappy days.
Yes.
It's called life. How do we get through that? What can our animal do for us? And how can we sort of shift that, instead of sitting there thinking the world's ending, how we can shift that
Yes.
to coming to a little sunshine?
Don't go on social media. That's a big one. Go to your dog and sit with your dog, because your dog feels all the emotions with you. And if you just sit with it, then you will start to see. I always see that after a couple minutes, my dog starts to bring me a toy. Say, shall we play? Because they feel that the things are shifting, and then they start to invite us to do some fun things.
So I understand that you have just written a book,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all about this. So first of all, can you tell us about your book and show us the cover? And um,
Yay! I am super excited. I love what this cover is becoming, because my friends made this great picture, and it's called Be the Change for Your Dog. And don't you think that this is a happy cover,
oh, it's beautiful. I love it. You did
right?
a good job.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's all about the life lessons from dogs to inspire rather than control. And that control part is coming because we feel overwhelmed, and we try to control our lives that life is throwing to us. And sometimes they're not so good days. So now we try to control it, and it makes us even more anxious and everything, because we cannot control life, right?
Nope.
So how can we change that and go into inspiring in relationships with your dog, but also with any relationships? If you have a crappy day and somebody comes to you and tells you what you need to do, you're like, heck no, I'm not doing that. But if somebody inspires you with, like the dog, with a toy, and brings you the toy but doesn't expect anything but just leaves it with you, you might change it.
Which changes who you are. It changes
Yeah.
from that, even being that disconnect. So, what I found having animals through my life, and one of the best things was there was a time in life where my kids were starting to get a little older, and I really wanted them to have an animal in their life because I really believe that an animal changes the surroundings of a home. It actually makes a house a home, in my
Yeah,
opinion.
then you don't have to run away, right?
Yeah, I didn't have to run away. Since I lived my life running away to everybody else's. I could tell stories of what my parents went through and all the rest of it. It was crazy years till the finally part where my father said, "You know what? I think Glenda needs a dog." So
Yes.
hence, yeah, we ended up with a dog. And I took full responsibility. I wasn't those normal children that usually would allow my mother or father, which usually is the mother, that takes over all the responsibility of the animal. I took it to heart that this was my dog. But what I found, what it did most importantly, is it brings your children in. So many times in our lives, we don't live in a family unit. It seems the family unit, and I see it today, and I watch friends, and with clients and so forth. The family is breaking apart. Families don't have the thing where my kids grew up, and I grew up that way of, we used to sit down and eat dinner together and talk about our day. And that was the start of that unit where you come together. It wasn't that you're grabbing something and you're running away. You're coming in, and the dog allows your family to again come in.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
So how can we take this and like, tell me more about your book, what it contains, what are the information that we need to share about animals for our own life, for our own good health?
Yeah, I love that. So I printed a wheel. Oh, here this way. So these are the 6 life lessons from dogs, and you already mentioned one was the live in the present. So it's the mindfulness, but it's also embrace uncertainty, right? It's live true to yourself, the authenticity. That's what dogs bring to, and then that unconditional love that we know all that dogs have, but also the art of empathy. And then dogs are always ready to learn. They have that growth mindset. They always want to expand and do more for you. So those life lessons are in my book as the first chapter. These are the lessons. And then I start in every chapter after, I start to integrate how you integrate that in your life. So the book is not how you train your dog. It is how you look to your dog and what you can change. And then the beautiful part in our universe is that we are all connected, right? You ask me questions and I answer the question, right? It's an action and reaction. If I talk to my dog or if I ask something from my dog's responses on it. But also, if I have certain emotions, my dog responds on it as well, right? So if we start to learn to self regulate our emotions and our thoughts, and we start to believe that our dogs can do better things than that we see now, then the dogs start to change and show us that it works.
Okay, so
And
you mentioned self-regulate. Let's go back for a second. You
mhm.
mentioned self-regulate. Can you explain that a little further?
Okay, so any thoughts and emotions and behavior that we have, we are so good in judging others that we have that feeling. So we judge our dog for not listening, and it makes us feel frustrated or angry or whatever. But what if we take it back and we ask ourselves, my dog is not listening. Maybe I didn't taught the dog what to do. Or maybe I don't have such a good relationship with my dog. So why would my dog come to me? Do I have value for my dog? Right? And how can my dog see my value? My dog can only see my value if I see my value. Right? So those are the things that is part of that self-regulation. If we are aware of our own thoughts, emotions, and behavior, and don't blame others or the dog, then we can change it on spot for ourselves, and that will ripple out to a different relationship in our dogs, but also a different relationship with our kids or spouse or business, whatever. Because if we can do this with our dog relationship, then we can do it anywhere. The dog is just an easy way to learn, because if we make a mistake, our dogs don't care, right? They still love us. And they are just like, okay, let's try it again. As long as I get some attention, you can try and try and try on me, right? You could even make hundreds mistakes. But in real life, if we make mistakes, we feel ashamed, and that makes it hard. So, what I tried to do with this book was, if we bring those lessons into a better relationship with our dog, and then these lessons bring them into the world, into any other relationship that we have in life.
So let's dive into that a little bit because you said a lot of key things about, and you know, it's part of life. So first of all, like when you call your dog and your dog's not coming, you know, it's just like in your own mannerisms. In step back, and it's all about, you know, really examining things in life. You don't have to put a magnifying glass. You just got to open your eyes sometimes a little bit and just see how you're talking to your dog. Like,
Yeah,
you know, there's different tones. And never mind that, but let's even open up that umbrella just a little bit wider. And how are you talking to others? You know, do you have a condescending voice that, you know, sometimes it's not really how you say it, it's also what you say, and vice versa. You know, there's all this whole thing because, you know, if you talk to people and you're talking in a condescending voice, then you might not get any response. You know, personally, if somebody talks to me in a disrespectful manner, you know, like bye bye, that's, you know,
yeah,
just part of, you know, I'm that's not what I'm about. So, you know, but dogs react in that way. So maybe it's time to sort of, through our animals and ourselves, is kind of, let's like look in the mirror, listen to what's going on.
yes, yeah, yeah, for sure. And then beside that, I haven't heard any dog talking with a language like we do. Did you? So what is their language? Their language is how they behave, right? It is how they intuitive feel about it. So that's the energy again. So let's try to use a little bit less words and a little bit more the way how we behave and the tone of voice and things like that.
Yes, exactly. So that's what I'm saying. We need to start mirroring ourselves and looking at these things. How do you talk to people? How are
Yeah.
you responding? You know, like sometimes you don't feel your own self worth. Well, maybe you don't show it to others too. So a lot of things are really a reflection. Now,
Yeah.
I know you do counseling or you do coaching on very different levels. So tell us about your coaching that you do because it's sort of all wounded together, is it not?
Yeah, it's a little bit. Yeah. So my coaching program is a course of 12 weeks and it's called Dog Mastery. And I used that dog as the mirror for how we behave. So in those 12 weeks, I guide you to all the steps to learn those lessons from the dogs and integrate them in your life. And you always have the mirror of your dog on the other side to show you how good you're doing,
Brilliant.
right?
Yeah.
And I think there's not any loving um, a being on this earth than a dog that teaches you. Right? I just see it. My dog is more like a therapist to me. If we want to open our eyes and want to see it, want to learn from them.
So you know, again, just as you said earlier, you know, your dog, you know, is not sitting there judging you when you screw up
No.
in life. They're not sitting there and going, you know, shame on you. But we shame ourselves, right?
Yes, yeah, we do. We
So
do.
we don't give ourselves self-love because of all of those things. Now, you know, so if we got to look back and see, you know, if our dog isn't sitting back and judging us or not coming to us or shaming us, then that would be one story. But we get automatic love for just being.
Yes, and we forgot, but that is how the world made us think that we need to have certain expectations and um, that makes us really anxious to maybe not get there, right? So if we go back to a dog is a dog and it's living right now, and if something happens, like if you have dogs playing together and something happens and a dog yelps, they kind of go back and they sit there for a little bit, and the rest is also kind of doing his own things, and then after a couple minutes they're done and then they start again, right? So why are we hanging into things? That is what this world made us think, and that's where self-love and unworthiness is kind of um is kind of brought in as a way of living, but it shouldn't be. And
So
we really need to see our own values.
great point, because really we have to start looking at ourselves in a different way than what we do.
Yeah, yeah. And I said, I would like that if you do this 12 weeks course, that you see yourself in the way how your dog sees you already.
So give us a little bit of the structure of your program, then, because very different than, what normally is out there.
Yeah, all right. Okay, so the structure in the program is that we go through divine timing. So we start with an awareness where first we need to acknowledge where we are. Huh? Where are we right now? And then from awareness, we at that time we start to expand our perception already, because we're very narrow in our perception. But if we expand it a little bit and sometimes see it from the dog's perspective, then it opens up a lot. So that is all starts with the awareness, and then we go into acceptance. So we need to accept that we are there instead of blaming the dog or anyone else in our lives, right? So we work on to acceptance. Then we go into oh, I'm all lost.
So if we,
uh,
like you just said, I'm going to just keep jumping back and forth because, you're giving a lot of very important information, because we don't tend to accept ourselves, right?
oh no.
We sit back and we're so busy, I always look at it in certain things. So, as a kid, we always had, Tom and Jerry, where there was the cat and mouse and they're all chasing each other, and that, and we sit there, and I look at it as the devil and the angel, as we got this little devil talking to us, and that devil is knocking us down and it's telling us how what we did wrong, and we should have, and all the rest of it. And then we got this angel on the other side that we don't really listen to, because we're too busy telling the angel to shut up so that the devil takes control.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it is. We're so programmed in a way that we forgot actually who we are. So we
Oh,
need to go back to you have value just the way how you are. You don't have to do anything, because people are telling me like, but I don't have a purpose. You know what? Your purpose, that's who you are. That's your purpose.
I love it. Yeah.
That's really really important. And I struggled in the beginning with that as well, and I thought like everybody is saying that I need to have a purpose in life. I thought like, where is my purpose? I don't know.
Well, I did that too. I struggled through the beginning part of life for many years, and I always wondered. I had a different question. I was always wondering, why was I born? Um,
Yeah, but that is because you didn't know
because
what your purpose was,
this
right?
was right,
Yeah.
and when we start to thinking that we're not worthy, like we look at somebody else and they can do, we look at their talents and we think of everything of them, but then we look at ourselves and we're, again, the angel and the devil. We're just looking at all the terrible things we could do, but we can't really recognize the great things that we can do.
Yeah, and that is what the world brought us with the programming, that is not just the programming on television and things like that, but also in cultures and Jumping from the Netherlands to Canada, we see different cultures, but we know that there is a certain programming, and they they kind of put us all in a box, and they want us in that box, because if you are in that box, then we will know what to do with you. And you see that already in schools. Like, I have four teenagers at home, and some of them are done school and some are still in school. But what you see is, you need to fit in a box, and if you're good, you go to the next box, and if you're less, you go to that box. But you still need to be in a box. But we are unique. We are just perfect how we are. We don't need to fit in a box. It's so important. And if you look around with all the dogs, there's not one dog the same. And you know what? They are okay with it. So why would we not be okay with being their friends?
And it's they, they just live in a world where it's just they love you for who you are, and
Yes.
for your goofiness, your greatness, your terribleness, your everything, every little ish of yourself.
Yeah, and it's so important, because then I would like to jump to the next step. We said that we have dogs in our life, but we attract the right dog for where we are in life. So the dog that you have right now is perfect for you, because that dog wants to help you learn the lessons that you need where you are now.
And we have to realize that we are in the exact place that we need to be.
Yeah, but like, a dog's life is about, I would say, around 10 years. Of course, we have dogs 15 years, but we also have dogs that are not even getting to 10. So let's say we have about a 10 years dog's life. And when we get another dog, people are comparing with their dog before, but you never get the same dog, because you are different. Because because the world around us is constantly changing. So we are changing with that. So the dog that you get is perfect for where you are, but you cannot compare that with a dog that you had before.
So
There
true.
were different lessons. There were different lessons with every dog you had.
And it's just the same thing as with our friends and our kids. You can't compare your children one to the
No.
other. We're all so unique, you know.
Yeah.
And what we have to start to realize is, even in our relationships, because every relationship we have different, in your life, you can have 50 friends, and every single friendship or relationship is different from the other. Some people make you laugh more, some people make you talk more,
Yes.
some people make you do goofy things, right? So every relationship has something unique in it that connects you and makes you be who you are.
Yeah. And the perfect thing, if we go back to energy, is you have a certain energy and you attract another energy, and you learn, if you're open, from the other energy, and they learn from you. That's why we have so many different people in the world. Because if we want to learn, we just need to open ourselves up for different people around us.
Okay, so how do we
Or
open ourselves
dogs.
up?
Sorry?
So how do we open ourselves up?
How do we open ourselves? Just be curious. I always tell people, be curious and ask questions.
Oh, the old money ask questions set.
I had a horrible story when my son was in grade 8. He came home very disappointed, because the teacher asked question, and he always put his finger up, and he had always had the answer. So the teacher said to him, "You're not allowed to put your hand up again." And so those little things are, that's how we are programmed already in education system. But on the other hand, because he always knew the answer, if he had a question and he put his hand up for a question, he got the same, you know everything already, you don't have to ask questions. So we're numbing down that people ask questions, but that is the only way how you can grow and learn from the people around you.
We also have to realize within ourselves, because if we don't continue, there's some people that feel, and I've heard it too many times, well, it's a dumb question. We got to learn that if you're thinking it, then it's a question that needs to be answered. And there is
Yes.
no such thing as a dumb question.
No, I just had my with my daughter. I was walking the dogs, and we talked about it. She said like, yeah, I had a whole lot of questions, and they looked to me like, why are you asking so many questions? She said, because I want to understand.
Makes
And
sense.
yeah, and so we always say the only dumb question that there is the question that you never asked.
And how else are we going to grow if we don't ask?
Um, if we don't ask, so yeah, I always say be curious. So I am always um, I'm opening myself up for other perspectives.
It's really the only way we can start shifting ourselves too, right? So there's the shift of where you, instead of being stagnant in that place too
Yes,
often, right? We're wanting to try to do things. We're too scared to do things. We think we're stupid, so we don't want to ask the question, and we're sitting in this place of stagnant hill where we want to go. And this happens to people in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. Hello, I'm talking to you out there. It's about really of saying, okay, I want to learn something new, and hell, I'm going to jump into the fire, and I'm going to start opening my mindset up so that if I don't understand it, I'm just going to ask.
yeah,
I'm going to learn. I'm going to
and,
learn something.
and and never be afraid to ask, because if people get frustrated by your questions, they have a problem, not you.
Brilliant. And it really
Yeah,
is, because too often we take these things and we end up, we hurt ourselves by worrying about what everybody else is thinking.
yes, yeah, yeah,
And that's the where the harm is in life, right? So when we show our part of being inquisitive and asking questions and doing that, what the most important thing I think is also that we show our children that if we could be asking questions, no matter how silly it might seem or whatever, we're teaching them that they can follow suit by
yeah,
asking questions and learning.
yeah, yeah, perfect, yeah. And how do you think that dogs are asking questions?
So how do dogs ask questions?
Ah, that was a question for you. All right, so dogs don't talk. So how do they ask questions?
Oh, they talk. Don't tell me dogs don't talk. My dog used to talk back to me all the time.
Okay, right. Okay, they can bark.
Yeah.
That's kind of their ways, but they talk with their behavior. So they start to do things to see if things work. That's their way of expanding, right?
Yeah. Brilliant. And it's true.
Yeah.
And isn't that true with us too?
Oh, for sure.
I always
For
got into things when I was a kid, and the only way is because the more things I got into, the more uh, responses that I saw from my parents. The reactions
yeah,
were crazy, but
and it brought you some attention. So sometimes, even if
yeah,
it's not the good attention, it still was attention, right?
that was my life. Yep.
Yeah, and that is really, if we think back to the dogs start to do a certain behavior, and it's our response to it is if it makes the behavior more or less. And that is by giving it attention. So even if you are mad because your dog did that, or frustrated, you're saying, no, silly dog, you cannot do that. Your dog is like, yeah, I got it.
Okay. Same like your
So
kids.
yeah, so I'm doing that next time again because that works.
Right. So instead, what do you do?
So if there's behavior that you don't want, you need to ignore it. Because if you ignore it, you take away that energy that your dog is looking for. So your dog starts to try something else. However, if your dog has made it a habit, the behavior a habit already, I I always tell people we need to manage a little bit. So we need to restrict that they cannot do that behavior anymore and then motivate something you would like to see from your dog and give that all the attention.
It makes sense. It makes sense. It's just like your kids. You want your
Uh,
kids to do well. Well, when they're doing something good, that's what you put the attention on.
yes.
And when they're doing things that aren't good, you just sort of let it go. But you might say something, but there's the way of saying something, but really focusing on the good things.
Yes. And I I need to honor back to all my kids that taught me over the last years as well, because it wasn't just the intuitive coaching and the dog training and the animal communication. It was being a mom and raising kids, four teenagers, and I had them in within 5 years.
Wow.
And and we made that emigration to Canada when they were not so big. So they taught me a lot. But you know what? I had dogs beside them, and I start to surrender that I cannot give attention to my dog and my kids at the same time. So my dogs learned me in that time that it's okay to spend a little bit less time with dogs and a little bit more with my kids.
And also your kids could also take on and take the responsibility of some of the dogs.
Yes, of course, they certainly did. And they had time with their dogs to play. So at the end, we all got lots of attention together, right?
Perfect.
Yeah. So but I had a different dog when I had young kids than when I had no kids.
Okay.
That was a completely different dog. And now my kids, my oldest is 19 and the youngest is 15. So now I got a puppy about a year and a half ago, and that is already a different dog again than the dogs that I had when they were little, because they are teaching me lessons that I need to know now.
And what is the best thing that's happened to you since you've had all these dogs and in your kids in your life?
The best thing that happened was that dogs never let me feel alone.
Wow.
Never.
Yeah.
There was always a dog that was there for me, always. And for my kids right now, right? If they have a hard time at school, or they're frustrated, or they lost the game, or whatever, the dog will walk to them and they will just sit with them, just feel it.
Right? Just the factor of not even having to say anything, just to be
No.
laying down on the ground together and just
Yeah.
taking in the love, right? Just does
Yes.
one.
Yeah. I think we learned so much about that my dog needs to sit, right? That is the number one command that everybody learns their dogs. But you know what? Maybe we should sit a little bit more and sit with the feelings that we have.
Wow. Wow. That was yeah, that was definitely drop the mic bit, because that is what we got to start learning, right? We have to really, I think it is life. We have to see it in really in the perspective that it's really meant to be. It's not, we put too much emphasis on so many things that it's really quite simple. And if you really look at things, the factor of being grateful for the moment, being, having, just looking in your own soul, and the fact, and this sounds, I'm going back to really things, being grateful you got five hands, five fingers on
I
these.
only have two.
Sometimes I think I have 20, but really, like, I really break things down to the minimal things, because the fact that you have eyes that are working and a mind that works and all of these type of things, and it's really down to basics in life. Like, it's not about having the house and having the cars and having the jewelry. That's not what life is about.
No, no, but you need to have a dog.
But you need to have a dog. And you need to know, no, no, let me change that. You don't need to have a dog.
No, you're right.
Have a dog in your life. And whether
Yes.
that is having your children's animals that are around you, or your friends or something, you need to bring the animal into your life. Because I think
Yeah.
there's something that breaks my heart more than anything else, is when I see a child who is scared of a dog or a cat.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I was today. I do have one of my dogs is a therapy dog, so I'm going to the college with the dog, and I walked through the hallways, and it was lots of different cultures in the college, and the I'm always surprised how many people are happy. Like, I see them coming, and they see the dog, and it's like, oh, the dog is here, right? But I also see dogs, kids, like, oh my gosh, there's a dog coming. And
Yeah.
I always tell them, this is a therapy dog. If you ever want to learn to pet a dog, then use a therapy dog, because they are so well trained. But what is the reason why we are afraid? It's because we forget that they are part of our lives, right?
Well, maybe not, but they're not part of our lives. In some societies, dogs
I
aren't.
know. No, I know. Yeah,
Let's be real about that.
yeah.
It's also depending on, if you were brought up in a home where dogs or animals are looked to be dirty, and my mother used to say that she didn't want a dog because it shed and it made it dirty and all the rest of it. And then, because I kept running away from home, my father ended up getting me a dog, because and then she saw what the love that the animal can do and can change in a home. But it's unfortunately, when a parent or somebody in a family starts having that negative outlook towards things, and what they start teaching their child, um, they teach fear.
Yes, yes. And what we have, if we have a fear for dog, what happens that the dog feels the fear, and if the dog is not trained to handle that fear, then they might react. So you need to be careful. And that's for sure. You really need to be careful. If you are afraid, it's often that that dog might react to you because it cannot handle your fear.
So, how do we handle a dog? How do we handle ourselves if we are fearful of dogs? How do we approach that situation
So
with?
it's very important, if you have fear for dogs, that you can never get away from that fear if you are not working with a dog who can handle your fear. So you need to it's actually the same as when we have a dog who is fearful from kids, right? It is the same way, is we make the distance between the dog and the trigger, what makes the fear, we try to make the dog confident enough, and only when it's confident we make the distance smaller. But we never go through that confidence, because if you don't have confidence, it can escalate, and you don't want that.
Absolutely. And so, if any of you are fearful of animals, The whole idea is, instead of approaching an animal, first of all, you always speak to the owner of the animal and let them know that you are, and you see whether the behavior of that dog is. Some
Yes.
dogs are not properly trained to handle that situation. And although they might look cute and fluffy sometimes can be triggered to bite, and they're only biting because it's their own way. They're protecting themselves.
Yeah, and they cannot handle that fear. But I love polar bears, but don't put your hand to it, right? They will eat it. So with dogs, I always tell people when they are really fearful, just go and sit somewhere and see if the dog comes to you instead. Never go to the dog. Always let the dog come to you, because then the dog is ready.
I love it.
That's important, but that's for everyone. So I really help kids approaching dogs as well. And it's crazy how certain kids kind of jump on a dog. They have never thought what it can be with the dog. If somebody jumps on you, do you like that? No, but the dog doesn't always like that either. So I always tell when we go to the college or to the high school with the dogs, I always tell them, like, just go down, make yourself a little bit smaller, and see if the dog comes to you. Because when the dog comes to you, it starts to check you out.
Absolutely. And smell is a really big indicator
Yes,
for an animal.
yes,
So allow
yes.
them, just put your hands out, right? Like,
You
not in,
can. Yeah. But
but
my dog loves to smell your face, and it's just doesn't do anything else, but it's be like this distance, but it just smells your face. That's the way how she gets to know you. So every dog is different, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So before we're coming to the end of our show, and it's always goes so fast, I know, right? But can just tell people again, show your book, where they can pick up a book and talk about changing. It's time to change your life. Learn from these beautiful little creatures that have been a godsend to our world, I think. So
Yeah,
where are you selling your book?
I am selling it on Amazon. You will find it under Arianne de Rond, or you put in "Be the Change for Your Dog." It's on Amazon. It's on Chapters Indigo, but it's all over the world. It's in the states at Barnes and Nobles, and I think it's everywhere available right now. I have lots of friends in the Netherlands who bought it. I have already people in Australia who bought it, so I
Ooh,
know it's there. So and if you're ready, if you're curious, just start with one chapter at a time. You don't need to do the whole book in once. It is written in chapters. They're bite sized, and there is at the end there's a reflection moment. There's some key chapter takeaways. So it really helps you to do one step at a time. You don't have to change everything in once.
wow, that's, yeah, another mic drop, right? That's part of life, right? If we can just take things one step at a time, it would make quite a difference on getting through life a little easier.
Yeah, we take way too big of a step sometimes, right?
Well, we
And
think so everything. We have to change all at once, don't we? We think
yeah,
so.
I know. So sometimes we just need to acknowledge, okay, if we're overwhelmed, then we know the step is too big. Just can we make it a little bit smaller?
So I want to thank you for coming on today and blessing us with your presence and a beautiful outlook into life. You really are a beautiful person, and most importantly, the way you look at things is really refreshing, and I love it. So thank you so much for joining us today on Let's Get Real. And really, it is about changing and getting real with yourself. And that's really what it's about today. So stop knocking yourself down, start building yourself up and learning that it only takes a small change. And get that book. Please put it up again one more time before we leave. Show us your cover of your book. It's time to be the
So it's
change.
yeah, and my goal, my mission
What's
is
your mission?
let's change this world with one dog at a time.
I love it. Thank you so much for joining us today,
Thank
and look
you.
forward to seeing you again soon.
It was a pleasure. Thank you so much, Glenda. Have a great day.
Great. Same to you. Bye for now.